For the Jolt of Faith during the month of May, I want to focus in on what we can learn from our Blessed Lady. You know, Mary, we often forget, was just like you and I. Granted, she was conceived without original sin, but that was a gift she needed to live out day in and day out. So what can we learn from Mary in our daily lives? Well, this week, I'm going to concentrate on the gift of being open to God's will rather than my own. We often forget that when Mary was a young teenage girl, God asked her to do the seemingly impossible, to become the mother of God, to conceive a child without a natural union with a man, to put her plans, her future, all on hold, to risk the scorn of Joseph, her parents, her family, her community, to risk being stoned to death. What God was asking her was seemingly impossible. It made no sense. It had never happened before. But Mary trusted in God rather than herself. And thankfully, she was able to become the instrument that Christ was born into the world, that chosen vessel that brought forth our salvation. My friends, the lesson is that if Mary was able to trust God in such a seemingly impossible situation that brought about such phenomenal results, the gift of the incarnation, what can we learn to be more trusting of God in our lives? God's not going to ask you and I to do something so seemingly impossible, so something against the odds, as Mary was asked at the Annunciation. But He's going to ask us sometimes to trust in Him, even when things seem to be going bad. To trust in His will rather than my own. To trust in His way of doing it rather than in my way of doing it. That's not easy. It's scary. Mary knew that as well. But that's where our faith comes in. To believe with all our hearts that God loves us and to trust that love to do the seemingly impossible. So during this month of May, maybe we can learn that important lesson from our Blessed Lady, to trust in God more than ourselves, to learn to say yes to God rather than the no that God typically gets. We call Mary's response to the angel at the Annunciation her fiat. Let it be done to me according to your word. May we learn from our Blessed Lady to make that prayer our own, to be more open to doing God's will and allowing God's will to become part of our lives and our hearts, so that like Mary, God can continue to do wonderful things through our faith as well. Not a homily, not a sermon, just that little jolt of faith we may need to get through the week.